invit în continuare pe domnul Claudiu Hobjila, Customer Engineer în cadrul Google Cloud, care ne va povesti o poveste frumoasă, cu siguranță, despre protecting your business in the digital age. Claudiu?
Salutare! Bună dimineața! I know there are plenty of people outside Romania here, so I thought, why not giving our friends from translation services a break? So I'm gonna deliver this in English. My name is Claudiu Hobjila. I'm a customer engineer, Google Cloud, based in Bucharest, Romania. And after so many useful information shared today, I thought, why not kind of tell you a story instead, right? Instead of going through some technicalities that may or may not be boring to some extent, right? So today I'm going to tell you a story. It's a story about maybe the biggest cybersecurity attack that humankind has ever seen. I'm going to tell you how Google was attacked, how we were a victim, what we did, what are our learnings out of this attack, and how you guys can, learn from our mistakes, maybe. So this is, let me see if I can find out how this thing works. Okay, so this is like the formal agenda, right? Because I had to put some formal agenda on my slides. So we're gonna walk through a quick introduction. We'll see what I mean by walls don't work. We're gonna see what layered defense in-depth security means to us. And after that, we're gonna quickly run through some real-world examples. Usually a few use cases that are at the end of our list of priorities. Maybe you can take something useful out of them. All right, so let me just start by asking, how many of you have ever used Gmail? Just let me see some hands. All right. How about YouTube? Has anyone ever used YouTube? Okay, there's a decent amount of people, I would say. Well, a decent amount of people that use TikTok, maybe, right? But in any case, those are the products, and we built about 9 products that have more than 1 billion users each. So I think it's pretty, fair to say that Google has learned some things for the past decades in how to secure those products, right? Because we have to make them secure. Otherwise, they simply would not work. And let's see how we actually did that, right? So this is the typical view of security. To most people, when you say cybersecurity, this is what they think of, right? You build a huge castle with really, really high walls and thick walls, and you protect what's valuable for your company. You put it inside, right? To make it almost impossible for any, bad actor to get in. If you want to be extra sure that it's hard to get in, you build some artificial river near that castle, right? And you put some crocodiles in it just to make it sure that nobody will ever get in, right? With the entire idea to keep what's valuable inside those walls, right? The thing with this approach is that instead of looking like this, it actually looks something like this. So all of a sudden, you find out that, hey, my walls are not as high as I thought they are not as thick as I thought they are, right? And the main problem is that once somebody manages to get inside of your walls, that bad actor will only have a massive playground where he can, hang out and have some fun, right? He has access to pretty much everything within those walls. So the castle approach, most of the times won't work, right? We agree that, okay. But how do we know that, right? How the heck does Google know that? Well, we know that because in 2009, our own walls failed. Some of you maybe already know about Project Aurora or Operation Aurora. This is considered by many to be the most complex and sophisticated cyber attack in history. What happened in December 2009? Google was under attack, a phishing attack actually. So one of our employees somewhere in our offices in the United States just clicked a random link, and in a matter of hours, the malware was injected into our CorpNet and then traversed all the networks all the way through our data centers. But this cyber attack was not an ordinary one, right? Was not only about Google. In fact, as part of our investigation after the attack, we found out that tens of other companies were similarly affected, right? Most of them had no idea, actually, that they were attacked. But at that time, Google was like the first company that came in front of its customers, right? And we spoke openly about what happened, right? And this project, Aurora, has taught us not only, to embrace transparency, to embrace honesty when discussing about cybersecurity with our customers, right? But it taught us also one other thing, maybe even more important, right? It taught us that walls don't freaking work. Right. So now take a moment, everyone here, to reflect just a few seconds. Is your company resilient to such cybersecurity attacks? Is your company, protected enough to respond, to recover after such an attack, right? And just to give you some context on what happened exactly in that day, it was December 2009. A few days before Christmas, actually, right? And, when everybody was thinking mainly, hey, what gifts should I buy to my colleague for Secret Santa? Let's hang out. What do you do for the Christmas holiday? And so on and so forth. All of a sudden, 4 p.m. on a Friday, we found out that, hey, this is real, right? So this is not an ordinary cybersecurity attack. And many people, Google employees, flew in from all over the world. And initially, we started with a small meeting room as part of the investigation with a bunch of people. And then in a matter of days, it became like a huge building only dedicated to this, to investigate and to recover after this cybersecurity attack. Okay, so we already agreed that walls don't work, right? And we just saw why. Okay, but what works then? So our approach when it comes to security is, simply put, trust nothing. 2 words, right? That's it. And this is really our implementation of the zero trust security, right? And as the founder of the Zero Trust Initiative said, trust is only a human emotion that we basically injected into the digital systems with essentially no reason, right? There's no benefit of your companies implementing trust within their organization. The only benefit is that bad actors, again, will have a great playground, right, to hang out. So we say, okay, we don't trust any particular device, we don't trust any particular network, we don't trust any particular, traffic, any particular application, and so on and so forth. So instead, what we do is we verify, right? And we do this with what is called a layered defense in-depth security approach. Why layered? Because we say that security has to shift from this afterthought of being something that's evaluated at the end of a process to something that has to be evaluated at every stage of the implementation, development, and so on and so forth, right? So we start with the hardware layer, going on to the network, deployment, application, usage, operations, and so on and so forth, even our internal users, right? And then why it is in-depth security? Well, because we assume that no one mitigation step is enough at each of those layers, right? So we apply at least 2 or 3 mitigations at every layer in this stack. And you have seen this just a little bit earlier, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, National Institutes in Standard of Technology. They essentially grouped, right, the mechanisms that you can implement into those pillars, which are identify, protect, detect, response, and recover. Main takeaway from here is that, like in Google Cloud, you're gonna have products and services that you can use for every of those pillars. Even, I don't know, maybe we discuss about cloud identity, security command center, reCAPTCHA, cloud IDS, and ending with our recent acquisitions, Mandiant, Chronicle, or Actifio Go, which was, by the way, rebranded just recently. Okay, so enough with the story, right? Let's walk through some real-world examples and maybe just give you an idea what I think is not considered a priority most of the times when I'm discussing with my customers across Europe. So the protection of data, right? When we essentially discuss data protection, we think of encryption, right? Which is really great, cool. But the end-to-end encryption process has essentially 3 stages, right? Most of the times we think of only the first 2 stages, which is encrypting data at rest. So when we store the data, it is encrypted. That's cool. Most of the hyperscalers out there do that by default. That's really good. And then the second stage is encrypting data in transit, right? So while data traverse through the internet or through some internal network, it has also to be encrypted, right? But what we kind of miss from this entire process is encrypting data in use. Because what most systems do is that whenever they need to use that data, they decrypt it to its original readable format. They use it, they encrypt it back and put it in, I don't know, someplace, right, to store it back again, and the cycle begins again. So my takeaway from here is that pay attention to the entire end-to-end encryption process, not only to the first 2 stages. And for the developers out there, maybe those are some interesting stats for you, right? When we look at the security of our software supply chain. And look, this is about open source, right? And open source is a really amazing thing that was invented, right? Google loves open source, and in fact, we are one of the biggest contributors to the open source community in the world. But what happens with those open source packages, right? So the cyber attacks aimed at OSS packages have seen an increase with 650%, and that's only from 2020 to 2021 in 1 year. An increase like huge. This is huge, right? Then commercial code bases with OSS vulnerabilities, pretty much all of them, right? Pretty much 100%. And we think that almost like 0.5% of the organizations worldwide will experience some attacks on their software supply chain at some point, right? So while it's good to think of encrypting our data at rest, in transit, so on and so forth, maybe a good thing to think of how secure is our software supply chain, right? When we write our code, when we deliver new versions of our code, when we implement new features, is this chain secure enough, right? Because this is actually what happened with Project Aurora. It was an attack to our internal IP, intellectual property, right? So another takeaway from this short presentation, pay attention to your software supply chain. This is another use case that happened last year in June. Is the biggest DDoS attack we have seen. And this DDoS attack peaked at 46 million requests per second. When I initially read the news, I thought, okay, how big is like 46 million requests per second? It seems like a lot, right? But it kind of hard to have an idea of how much damage this can do. And just to give you an, an idea of how big that is the entire amount of requests that Wikipedia receives over a day are sent to your application in 10 minutes. That's the equivalent. So this is massive, right? Like it's 76% more than the previous biggest DDoS attack in history. So as you see, like the attackers kind of catch up pretty fast with the technology, right? So you have to catch up as well. And how this attack ended is actually the victim was of one of our customers. And how they managed to survive, and actually not only to survive, but to make their users do not see any impact on the application that was attacked, right? So their users have seen nothing for them, because the customer has implemented that layered defense in-depth security, right? So in front of their load balancing solution, which is kind of the front end of their application, right? They attached a service that is called Cloud Armor, which is a managed service that you can attach to your load balancer or to your CDN endpoint, which will essentially learn the usage pattern of your application and is going to be able to tell what requests may be a DDoS attack or not, right? It does that by learning your application. It does that by sending you an alert with a confidence score where we apply machine learning, so we know which confidence we have when we say that a certain request might be part of a DDoS attack. And it's going to give you a rule that you can implement automatically without any human interaction, right? So while your security team is at home sleeping, you receive an alert, and if you do not do anything, like that rule is going to be automatically implemented to your front end. So so those requests are blocked by default. That is pretty much my story that I wanted to share with you today. Thank you for your attention, and happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you very much. A lot of insightful thoughts, actually. So I was wondering, when you said trust nothing, that's a very tough words, but I fully agree with you. So if you work in cybersecurity, you really should trust nothing. Now, I'm a CIO, and my engineers updated the, SolarWinds Orion product that they're using. And the story. We put our the bad guys, we open a door to the bad guys. So I'm thinking, if I'm wrong, when I trust a supplier, a software supplier, for their updates, and they are bringing me into the house, the bad guys. It's a tough question, but how do you comment this one?
It is, and as I always say, when I do not really know the answer to a question, that's a really great question, right? So I think there's no easy answer to that. But the entire philosophy with zero trust or trust nothing is that, okay, so while I do not trust any particular, package or whatever, patch or so on and so forth, it doesn't end there, right? I don't trust, but, and that's the important thing, I verify, I double check, I do my own due diligence, right? So I have my own security mechanisms in place that will kind of, confirm that what we received or what we did previously is in fact something good. And bottom line is that I think there's a certain threshold, a certain balance that you have to keep, right? Because no system out there is secure 100%, right? There's no such thing. Google is not immune to something like that, right? So everybody has to assess how important is, what risk can we take accountability on, right? So how much money we have to invest into getting secure when it comes to cybersecurity, and what benefit we get out of it, right? And there's a certain, threshold there.
Absolutely, very good answer. So again, I was challenging you because I know you can handle. But now, where is the responsibility of the software companies when it comes to covering the vulnerabilities? But actually, the question is, do the software developer or do the software developer business should increase their knowledge in cybersecurity from when they are building the code?
Of course, my easy answer to that is absolutely yes. Like security has to be top of mind for everybody, like starting with the upper management, CXOs, all the way down to managers, support, developers, salespeople. Everybody has to live with this security top of their minds. And as an example, you just saw what happened with one of our employees, right? If we do not train our employees, if we do not train our developers, sooner or later something will happen for sure. It's just a matter of time, right? And regarding the responsibility, where does it start and where does it end? I always say that security is a shared responsibility, right? Between the provider, the software provider, the cloud provider, whatever, and the customer, right? Because while you have as a customer all the mechanisms in place to make sure that you have a good security posture, right? It's kind of your job to make sure that those mechanisms are implemented and followed according to the best practices, to our recommendations, right? So that's why I say that it's a shared responsibility. It's never black or white.
Thank you very much. Claudiu Hobjila, customer engineer, Google Cloud. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, I guess you noticed the transparency of Google. So basically, they share with us one of the biggest cybersecurity attack, which is absolutely fabulous. And you got to study that attack.